and I'll start off the meeting. So welcome to today's licensing subcommittee. My name is James Clapson and I'm acting as the meeting facilitator to conduct the election of chair for this meeting. So can I have a nomination for chair, please? Oh.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Brenda Rogers, please.
Super. And are you in agreement with that, Councillor Rogers?
Yes, thank you.
Super. Okay then. So you've been elected chair for this licensing subcommittee. I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to today's meeting of the licensing subcommittee. Prior to this meeting, all participants have previously checked that they can be heard and seen and can see and hear other members. To double check this and to introduce everyone who is present at this remote meeting, I would kindly ask that you confirm your attendance and your role or job title when I say your name. Thank you. I have Councillor Ara, but she is not attending. Councillor Wing.
Councillor Wing, Central Harbour Ramsgate.
Miss Phillips, litigation solicitor.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Phillips, the principal litigation lawyer for Thanet Council.
Thank you. Mr. Clapson.
Yeah, James Clapson, Democratic Services.
Miss Lane.
Yeah, I'm Katie Lane, Environmental Protection Officer.
Thank you. Mr. Brown? Is Mr. Brown here?
No, he's on the next one.
Okay, thank you. Miss Brock?
Alison Brock, Technical Support Manager.
Thank you. Miss Stalker? Is Miss Stocker here? No. PC Gray?
No.
Mr. Hayden? No, he's here.
Yeah, Steve Hayden. I'm the owner of the Waves.
Thank you. And Mr. Kramer?
Yes, good morning. Hans Kramer here. I live next door to the Waves.
Thank you. Have I missed anyone present here today? No. If you have technical difficulties during the meeting, then please contact Katie, the Democratic Services Officer, on call, who will attempt to assist you. She will put her phone number in the chat function. I would ask participants, when you're not speaking, to please mute your microphone. This minimises background noise and will help everyone in listening to the proceedings. Microphones must only be on if the participant has been granted permission to speak. To gain my permission to speak, please very briefly indicate on the chat to the right side of the screen, and I will then make a note and go back to you once the person speaking has finished. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and they're not used to make or receive calls whilst at the meeting's in progress. Do not turn off your phones in case you need to be contacted in the event of technical difficulties. Please also refrain from checking emails or conducting other business and ensure that you're in a quiet room, free from distractions for the duration of the meeting. Please note this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public, except for the private deliberation part of this meeting. A separate private hangout meeting will take place for this element of item 4, and the public meeting will resume in its previous digital location 30 minutes later, unless there is reason to suggest an earlier or later time. No unauthorised recordings of the confidential item of business is permitted to take place. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Ara, I presume.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Agenda item 3, application to vary a premises licence, the Waves B&B. I call upon Ms Phillips, the Council's Principal Litigation Solicitor, to explain to the parties the procedure that we will be taking during this hearing.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'd like everyone present to know that the decisions made by this subcommittee are made in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and based on the information presented in this agenda, together with any verbal submissions made today. Decisions of the subcommittee are not politically based. This subcommittee must act impartially and offer a fair and unbiased hearing of today's application. The subcommittee will give a fair consideration to everything it hears and reads today. We are here to consider the application for a variation of the premises licence at the Waves B&B, Hengist Road, Birchington, under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. The applicant has applied to vary the licence at the Waves B&B at the address aforementioned. The variation is to include the first floor area and balcony as marked on the plan as part of the licensed area of the premises. The bar on the ground floor has already been moved under a minor variation application, as this did not alter any of the licensing objectives or increase any of the licensing activities. We will hear the parties in the following order: the licensing officer, the applicant for the variation of the license, and any representations. Each party has up to 15 minutes to make its presentation, and this includes any witness called. You may not be allowed to introduce any new evidence at this stage that has not been disclosed in the proceedings, and you may be asked to cease from including any new evidence. You are not expected nor required to talk for the full 15 minutes. Following each presentation, the members of the committee may ask you questions and may ask your witness questions. There are no time limits for the members' questions. At the end of the proceedings, each party will have 5 minutes to make a closing statement in the following order: the applicant for the licence and any representatives. Please note, to ensure that this virtual meeting runs smoothly, only one individual shall be allowed to speak at a time. Any person speaking must be permitted to finish what they are saying without interruption. The meeting will then adjourn for the subcommittee to consider its decision. When we adjourn, the subcommittee members, myself as the legal officer, will leave this virtual meeting. And if you'd like to hear the decision of the subcommittee, I shall advise everyone of the decision approximately 30 minutes from the time of the adjournment. And you can either remain in the virtual meeting during this time, or you can use the link again to re-access the meeting. If you do decide to wait in the virtual meeting room, please turn off your cameras and microphones to ensure your privacy, as the recording will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. I would like to stress, sorry, somebody's got a bit of feedback there. I would like to stress the importance following the hearing procedure, and that there will be an opportunity for all parties to make a final presentation after questioning. Therefore, I would advise all present to please follow the procedure and to respect those speaking by not interrupting or speaking over others. If people do interrupt or speak over others, I, as chairman, will ask them to refrain from doing so. If they continue to do so after my warning, then that individual could face being asked to leave the meeting. Could the licensing officer please present the report?
Morning, everyone. Mr. Hayden has applied to vary his current licence to include part of the first floor area and the balcony as part of the licensed premises. On advertising this, we've received one representation, which is attached at Annex 2, and the Environmental Health Department have agreed conditions with the applicant, which would be non-use of the balcony area after 9 o'clock. And Mr. Hayden has also agreed to put up acoustic screens on that area should his application be approved. So the conditions from the Environmental Health Department are also attached at Annex 3. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant present their application, please?
Good morning. Yes, my application is to be able to use my dining area upstairs and the balcony area. This is because of a simple sum with the COVID-19 restrictions and trying to create enough space to be able to use the indoors if the government lift the thing on the 17th. We just want to be able to give a safer area to stay. I'm happy, as I've discussed with Katie Lane, the Environmental Protection, to only use the outdoor area until 9 o'clock, which we can use, and I believe we're entitled to use for the bed and breakfast guests, but we're not entitled to use it for the public at the moment. So I just want to be able to use it for the public. I want to give them something that they can sit out the front, look at the sea. The minutes next door are able to use theirs. So yeah, we've spent quite an extensive amount of money converting it all over. We've given up more of our family home to be able to do this, because it's a simple sum that we need to be able to put bums on seats to survive. We've had a year now with no money, and this will turn the waves into something that is usable, if you like, in the current climate.
Thank you. Does the licensing officer have any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do the police have any questions? We don't have the police here, do we?
No, they didn't put any objections forward.
Thank you. Do the environmental protection officers have any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Does the member of the public have any questions for the applicant? No? Do members of the committee have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, please, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Wing.
I think I've got three. So presently, I think you've answered one of my questions. The balcony is used for bed and breakfast customers only, and it will move to the general public being able to use that. You also mentioned that it's to do with the COVID situation. So is this a temporary thing, so that if we eventually move to a situation where we don't have to social distance, will you then revert back to how you've operated, I guess?
I'd like to keep it. Obviously, it's an expansion of a business that's been closed now for a year. I think if we can keep it, it will make the Waves a better place. Offering the balcony upstairs. I can't get a great deal of people up there. Probably 20, if that. In the COVID situation, maybe 12. But it does give us a better opportunity to be able to do something now. And then better the place for the future. It's a great balcony. It's not huge, but it does overlook the sea and overlooks the gardens.
I noticed on the map there was a number of houses quite close. I'm not familiar. I cycled most of the coast regularly, but I don't particularly look behind. So I think there was one house, the top side of the property, and then three behind. What's the sort of distance between where you are and the houses in terms of metres, I guess, or feet?
Okay, so on one side we've got the Minis Bar and Brasserie and the Bike Hire and Honey's Cafe. Okay. And on the other side is Hengist Road, which is our private road we all live in. Hans is at the back of my property, which is probably 40 metres away. Okay. Opposite us, we have Hengist Road, which is Barry and Jackie, and it goes up through number 1, 3, 5. I believe I've spoken to them all and they don't have any problems at all. I've agreed with Barry, who is the closest resident in Hengist Road with me, that we would put an acoustic fence up on his side as well. And he actually said, well, you don't need to, Steve, it doesn't bother us. We've had people up here when we had it as a personal family home. We've had, 20 friends up here with a barbecue, and it doesn't seem to create any discomfort for Barry, who is direct opposite us.
So am I assuming that the people that are drinking on the balcony will be seated? They'll be in seated areas?
Yes, they will.
Okay, thank you.
There'll be tables and chairs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do the environmental protection officers have any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm trying to skip past the police bit. Would the environmental protection officers please present their case?
Yes, good morning. I have actually agreed conditions, as Ms Brock said, with Mr Hayden. The external area of the property did cause me some concerns about late night noise to residents that are nearby, particularly the two nearest, which do have line of sight from the balcony area to the neighbouring properties. On the site visit and discussion with Mr Hayden subsequently, we agreed that 9 o'clock would be appropriate to shut that area so that everybody had to then come into the property after 9 p.m. And as Mr Hayden said, he has agreed to put some acoustic screening on the south and east border, which is the line of sight between the neighbouring properties. So we agreed those conditions.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any questions for the Environmental Protection Officer?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Does the member of the public have any questions for the Environmental Protection Officer? No, thank you. Do members of the committee have any questions for the Environmental Protection Officer?
Yes, please, Chair. What will the acoustic barriers look like? Will they detract from the look of the place? I wouldn't know what they look like.
Yes, they would have to put those in through the planning application, and they would be agreed. There are various ones. Sometimes they can be glass, sometimes they can be a wood. So it depends on what Mr Hayden's source is.
Okay.
And if agreed.
So am I assuming that even if we approved this licence, that it couldn't go ahead until the application for the acoustic barriers was approved via planning?
Yeah, the planning is a separate, and he does. Mr Hayden does have to apply for planning permission for the extension of hours as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the point of the meeting at which members of the public get to make their representations. Mr Kramer, please, can you make your representation?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. First of all, I have no issue with this application if it was for what was stated, the COVID-19 relief. I have absolutely no issue with that. If this was a temporary thing, as it was presented early on, let's say till the end of June or something, I understand, and that we had no issue with that. However, we've just learned that is not necessarily the case, that we want to continue using it going forward. So if that is the case, they want to continue using it. It's basically an expansion of the premises of the use of it, right? So from our perspective, initially this was a family home next door. It got B&B rooms. Anyway, it got extended to a hotel with guests. The guests could use the bar. Then we got retrospective applications for it to be used as a cafe and a bar. The green in front of it's been used now with I think 10 or 11 benches as well for seating. There's a ground floor extension, so the building keeps expanding, and the result of it is now that I live next door to a pub, basically a bar, restaurant, cafe, or whatever you want to call it. This is in a residential road. So what I'm trying to convey to you here is that if you give a license to this, that basically means that any house, the detached house or any substantial house next to another dwelling, can be turned into a pub or a bar, and I find that worrying. As it is right now, the permission for the property is only to be used until 9 o'clock anyway. The planning commission, right? There is no planning application that allows the usage, the open hours, to go beyond that. However, over the last, well, not the last year, but before that, it was open till 11 o'clock at night, and actually, you know, that in itself is fine. So the variation in the hours, I don't have a huge issue with, as long as, you know, we close it by 9 o'clock outside, and there is no music, no alcohol taken off site. Very similar to the cafe for VCT Honeys. That's no issue for us at all, right? So we have, however, suffered quite a bit with noise in the past, waste as well, and certainly odor has been a huge issue for us in the past, and that's only been when the wave has been opened. So now opening upstairs would bring it closer to us, of course, internally. So I have some concerns around sound there, sound insulation. So that would have to be investigated. You know, there are windows in there. So we would be concerned about that. When the application was originally approved, the statement was, it is far away from us as possible, and that is true. Obviously, it brings it closer now, but particularly the balcony, that would be our concern. And I understand the comments we've made around sound barriers. I'm not sure how effective they will be, given that it's the first floor, and how that sound will bounce off the other buildings around us. It's just our experience in the past with that. I must say that the balcony so far has not been used by guests of the B&B. I've not witnessed that at all. There is no seating up there that I've seen been used. But again, that would have been only a few people. So that's not a huge issue, right? If there's a few people up there. There is no way we could guarantee that people would be seated. As was mentioned, you know, there's a view over the street. People would stand up, right? And it's not only on the south and the east side. Sound will also go around the other side. But for me, the main thing around all of this is a further expansion of the business on this plot right next door to our house. You can check with TDC, and maybe you have. We have in the past had a few incidents that we have logged and that have been investigated by TDC around odor and waste and sound complaints that we had. This is not a pleasure for me, I must say. I really don't like doing this. I would much rather that you know, we just live next to it in all peace and everything, right? So I would say it is closer than 40 meters. I'm just looking out the window here. It is closer than 40 meters. I would say it's probably around 25, but give that what it is. Now, I would say, can we find a compromise? And of course, there are ways we can look at this, and we should probably go down that route, right? So, with regards to the hours, which is one request, I think, like you've done with VCT Honeys, that's fine, right? Make a provision that 11 o'clock indoors, you know, 9 o'clock outdoors, and making sure there is no sound or no alcohol taken off site, and then that's absolutely fine, from my perspective at least. Using the first floor, well, internally, well, as long as there is no sound issues, again, I can hardly object against that, right? That's inside, although it is an expansion of the business, of course. The balcony, though, for me is a huge issue. So I hope that you can look at that, and you know, the building there are already benches outside. This is quite substantial already, given that it's is a residential road. So I really think it's unnecessary for us to do that. So that's what I wanted to bring to you. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Does the applicant have any questions? No. Thank you. Do the environmental protection officers have any questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
Do members of the committee have any questions?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I would now like to ask each party to sum up and make final representations. Would the environmental protection officers like to sum up?
The only thing that I would like to add is if there are further concerns of noise coming from inside the property, seeing that it's open till 11 o'clock, the committee could consider asking that all windows and doors are closed after 9 PM also, except for ingress and egress, so that may help if there were, you know, if there was noise inside the property, it would further insulate the property from noise.
Thank you. Would the member of public like to sum up?
You're asking me?
I am, yes, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just making sure. Yeah. So I think I've said it to you. I think a further expansion of the business has further negative impact for us, and I would like you to consider that, especially as I know that we're always pushing the rules, right, with retrospective applications, even right now with the compliance right now to the flu and the odor. So I would really like to see if you could curtail this as much as we can for our benefit as residents here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to sum up?
Yeah, just basically, obviously, you know, we try to do our best for the neighbours, including Mr. Kramer. We have put some extra fencing at the back, trying to do the sound barriers. We've moved the garden further forward this way in the back garden, so it's further away from him, and erected other fences. We've moved our bin area, although the council collect the bins. So we are constantly on it. I know this is nothing to do with this application, but the odour, the flue isn't finished yet. Again, we're having problems just getting the extension for that, but that has been discussed with the enforcement officers. So we do everything that we've asked to do. We jump through all the hoops, we dot the I's and we cross the T's. We will agree to, closing the windows and doors, especially at the back of the property. We have some big bifold doors which we can agree to close at 9 o'clock, so it doesn't. And that is the closest point to Mr. Kramer's. So we will do everything we can to try and make it easier and quieter for Mr. Kramer. And that's basically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The members of the subcommittee will now leave this meeting along with the council's legal representative to deliberate this matter in private. We shall resume here to deliver a verdict in 30 minutes' time. Whilst we leave the meeting, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to explain the retiring process.
Thanks, Chair. I've just noticed that Miss Brooks raised her hand. I don't know if she's got something she'd like to say.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
No, I just wanted to say that obviously any time restraints you put on this application is purely for the first floor and the balcony. It doesn't affect anything that's already in place for downstairs. So it's purely anything will be for the first floor area and the balcony, the two new parts of the application.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it back to you, Jane?
Okay, thank you very much. So we, the councillors, myself and the legal officer will go to a private room now to come up with the decision. We will then return back here using this meeting room in 30 minutes. So we'll meet you back here at 11 o'clock. You can choose either to remain in the room as you are now and just mute your microphone, turn your video off, or you can leave and come back using the same meeting link as you used previously to get into this one. So we will see you back here at 11 o'clock.
Welcome back. It's now 11 o'clock. I would like to invite Ms. Phillips, the Principal Litigation Solicitor, to read a summary of the subcommittee's determination. Thank you.
Thank you. In the application for the variation of the premises licence at the Waves B&B at 2 Hengist Road, Birchington, the Thanet District Council, as the relevant licensing authority in accordance with Section 12 of the Licensing Act and upon consideration of representations made to the Licensing Committee today, which was made by the Licensing Authority, Alison Brooke, the applicant, Steve Hayden, and the member of the public, Johannes Kramer, and also the Environmental Health Officer. It is a decision of the Licensing Subcommittee that the application be granted. In considering the licensing objectives, it is the view of the committee that the variation of the license would not prevent crime and disorder, will not contribute to public safety or detract from public safety, will not contribute to nuisance, and will meet the objective of protecting children from harm. It has been noted that the member of the public expressed concerns as to the impact of the extension of the business on his premises, and that the business is on a residential road, but the applicant has agreed to close the doors and the windows on the first floor, and this has been noted. And also the application is subject to further scrutiny under the planning permission that it's waiting for. And that is our decision today. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now adjourn this meeting and reconvene at 11:30 in order to consider agenda item 4, the application for a new club premises certificate for the Gold Room VIP Private Club. Thank you.